Hello, everyone. I'm Roger, the Spaceman, filling in for the Halfling tonight, who is under the weather. But tonight we welcome a special guest, Heather Tracy. So we want to welcome you all to season 6 of the Halfling and the Spaceman, tonight without the Halfling. There are so many creators out there, and they all have their own stories about their personal journeys and the creators they are now. We're here to bring you those stories and entertain and inspire you. Again, joining us is Heather Tracy. Heather is the copy editor for the publishing company Space Wizard Science Fantasy with her husband, William Tracy. She also owns Melvin's Travel Adventures, a travel agency specializing in Nerdventures. And her own first book has just been released. Welcome, Heather.
Hi, thanks for having me.
So, Heather, why don't you tell our big YouTube audience out there a little bit about yourself and what your background is?
Hi, so I've grown up in North Carolina, lived here all my life, born and raised in Charlotte, and then moved to Raleigh, North Carolina, went to NC State University, which is where I met my husband. And we just decided to stay because we love the area. And also, close enough to the parents, but not too close. So we have been married over 20 years and, have started this publishing company, and I've been copy editing since basically since I graduated college. I majored in English with a focus in editing. So I've been copy editing for Space Wizard since its inception, which has been wonderful, and getting to read so many amazing books by so many amazing writers, my husband, but so many others. And then, I've been writing since I was a teenager, but finally have gotten the confidence up to publish my own book. So that's, amazing. And then I also run a travel agency, which is something I started back in 2018, right before the pandemic, when everything was like, no, don't travel anywhere. But it's come back, and lots of great clients, going lots of fantastic places, and I love exploring nerdy places and nerdy things, so that's why I specialize in Nerdventures. But yeah. Lots of fun.
It might be surprising to you, but the Halfling and I both love nerdy things and nerdy adventures.
Not as surprising as you might think.
Okay. It's funny you mentioned that you guys met at NC State, because Janet and I used to be part of the gaming and science fiction club at NC State. Even though we weren't state students, we would travel down to NC State every Friday night to hang out with those guys, even though they were a decade younger than we were. So we have our hearts, even though we're UNC people, our hearts are attached to NC State too.
Oh, awesome. That's great.
All right. So, Heather, I know you're married to William Tracy, and William is kind of a well-known nerd in the nerd circles around here in North Carolina. Do you consider yourself to be a nerd as well?
Oh, yes, most definitely. I was definitely a nerd before being a nerd was cool. But yeah, I think having passions for something, whether it's something typically nerdy like Star Trek or Lord of the Rings or something like that, or just like having a passion for reading, could be considered nerdy. And I don't think it needs to carry the bad name that it once did. I think we're all nerdy about something, and it can just be, hey, I'm nerdy about this thing, and it's fun, yeah.
Absolutely. So when you were growing up, and you said you were kind of already a nerd before you met William, what kind of things were you nerdy about?
Definitely Star Trek. My dad and I used to watch Star Trek every week. The Next Generation was our show. We used to watch that all the time. But also westerns.
Ooh.
I was a big fan of westerns as a kid, and I have a western storyline that I've been working on literally since I was 13. One day that is going to come out in print. But I have got to figure out the right angle for a modern audience to get that out there. It's coming, but not quite yet. And Lois and Clark was a huge show for me. That's my best friend and I. That's how we bonded when we were in. I was in ninth grade. She was in 10th grade. And superhero stories like that were just a big thing for me back then as well. Which now I'm a Marvel fan more than a DC fan, but yeah.
Yeah, I understand the Marvel versus DC thing. I'm a giant Fantastic Four fan, and I'm just waiting for the Fantastic Four movie this summer. I'm hoping they finally get it right.
Hopefully so. Yeah, that would be really great.
So, switching gears a little bit, what do you do as the in-house editor for Space Wizard Science Fantasy? What does your role consist of?
So, William, my husband, is the developmental editor for Space Wizard. So, what he does is he will take the manuscripts and he will go through and look at character and setting and plot and go through those points and help the authors, hone the story and make it the best that it can be. And then they'll go back and do revisions with his suggestions in mind. They may go to beta readers after that, that sort of thing. And then once they've finished and they're done, then I get it. And I go through and look for grammar, punctuation, spelling errors, sentences that don't make any sense, but also consistency issues. If somebody on page 2 has blue eyes and then later on page 55 has green eyes, that's something I need to check for. Or, if they're on the planet Pluto, still a planet to me. Sorry, Neil deGrasse Tyson. But anyway, if they're on Pluto in chapter 1 and then later they're on Neptune, we need to figure that out. So that's a lot of the stuff that I do, and a lot of punctuation stuff, and just trying to polish it and make sure that it is very readable, easily accessible, makes sense.
And it's a lot more difficult than people give it credit
Oh,
for
yeah.
being. Yeah. Talking about Pluto for a second, in my day, Pluto was a planet and we liked it that way.
Yes.
So after all this time being an in-house editor, doing all this work with consistency and, just looking for the minor details, what made you decide that you had to take that plunge for yourself?
Well, I've been writing for quite a while. My husband and I have done a couple of the writing excuses cruises retreats. We did one in 2015, one in 2016, one in 2017. And those really inspired me a lot to continue my writing to make it better, gave me a lot of great pointers. We've made a ton of great friends, lots of networking doing that. That was one of the reasons why William started publishing in the first place. It took me a while to get there, but I did, and I actually started this book on or around one of those cruises. Literally around 2015. So it's been 10 years that I've been working on this book off and on. And the first chapter has been something that I have been working on, or that I wrote fairly quickly. And I showed it to William, and he said, "That is one of the best things you've ever written. You need to do something with this." And very few changes have happened to that first chapter since I originally wrote it, because it's very, yeah, I love it. And some minor tweaks here and there because the rest of the story has changed a little bit, but a lot of it has stayed the same. But I knew I needed to do something with it, and I eventually did use it as a NaNoWriMo novel to finish it up at one point, either in 2015 or 2016. And then it just got put to the side because didn't have enough heart. It was just sort of there. It was just a plain Jane romance, boy meets girl, and nothing really happened. And I was like, this needs something, and I don't know what it needs. And then kind of fast forward to 2022, I was diagnosed with breast cancer.
Ooh.
And I am now, as of April 20th this year, a 3-year survivor. So, yay. Awesome. But I was going through treatment, and I didn't feel like writing anything. I wrote nothing through treatment. Like, that was, a lot of people, like, they journal or they, do stuff during treatment. That was not me. But when I was finished with treatment at the beginning of 2023, I was thinking about it, and I was like, maybe I should do something with my story. Maybe it would be therapeutic to write my story in some way. And I wasn't trying to think, do I want to write nonfiction? Do I want to do fiction? And then I kept coming back to this book, and I'm like, I really want to go back to those characters and that first chapter, and how can I, meld this together? And I also wanted to get Space Wizard to publish it, which meant that, one, it needed to be science fiction or fantasy, which typically I write romance. And then also it needed to have some kind of a queer focus, because we do all queer science fiction and fantasy. And then I got to thinking, what if when I got that call, there was another universe, Heather, who got a call that went a different way and didn't have breast cancer? And what if I did that with the story?
Ooh.
What about the multiverse concept sort of thing? And what if I have the two timelines going simultaneously, showing what would happen if your life went a different way? And then I came up with the idea of the bisexual main character, who she has a different romantic partner in each timeline. One a female, one a male. And I also brought into it the dreams that I had in the original manuscript, where she's dreaming of this faceless romantic partner in each timeline. But in one, it's the male, and in the other, it's the female that kind of help guide her along. But yeah, it kind of, that journey helped me evolve the book, but also the book helped me deal with my journey at the same time. And I hope that it also is helpful to other people who may be going through something similar, or may know somebody who's going through something similar, and how to maybe approach them or talk to them about their journey.
And that's one of the things we hope to do with our podcast, is reach people and inspire them. And your story is very, very inspiring. So, how long did it take you to go from conception to the final manuscript?
It was probably about a year or so. It took me a while to think through what I was going to do, and then I sat and I started outlining in a spreadsheet last year. And because of the two timeline situation, I needed to see them next to each other so I could kind of plot out how they were going to run in parallel to each other. And also, my husband and I are very big into spreadsheets. We're nerdy about spreadsheets. But yeah, so I did that, and then just started plugging through, and some of the original manuscript did make it into, including the first chapter, but some of the original manuscript did make it into the final draft as well, albeit changed for the new version. And a lot of the characters are the same from the original version, but I have a few friends who read the original version and got to read the new version as beta readers and could tell a big difference between the first version and the new version. It's much better because I've written a lot in between. And the more you write, the better you get at your craft. And the more I've been reading through Space Wizard with copy editing and even reading for fun, the more you learn about how to do this thing. So yeah.
Yeah, we keep hoping that will happen with our podcast, but it's not really taking effect so far. So God help us. Now, Heather, when you gave your manuscript to William, were you comfortable doing that? Were you worried that he was going to take the red pen to it?
Always. I mean, there's a little bit of imposter syndrome there. Always. I mean, I have it now, even with the book coming out and with praise that I've gotten so far for it. There's always a little bit of that there. I don't think there's anybody on this planet who doesn't have imposter syndrome at some point. But he made, really great comments. He said it was really, really good. And there were changes that he suggested, but they were good comments. Did I take all of them? No. But the ones that I did take, I think did make the manuscript better overall. And, I had a selection of 5 beta readers as well. I did not take all of everyone's comments there either, but I think by taking some from everybody and meshing them together, I think that also made the manuscript a whole lot better overall as well. Because I had some people who read the romance genre, some people who read more science fiction, fantasy, and or queer fiction. So I was getting some feedback from both sides, which I think gave me more well-rounded feedback as well. So, you don't ever take all of the feedback necessarily because it's your book, ultimately, and you have to do with it what you feel is the best. But you also want to be open-minded to the feedback as well, because these people do know some things that you might not know, or may find things that you completely missed that you were like, oh, whoops. I totally had that person doing this thing on this page, and then all of a sudden they're over here. So, yes.
I don't write myself, or at least I haven't done it in years, but I understand. And unfortunately, I think the Spaceman is going to have to start writing again once he retires, but that's a whole nother topic. Now that you've got this first book out of the way, do you plan to continue your writing journey, or is this one a one and done sort of situation?
Well, I do have 2 short stories, one that's already published in our Fiery Deeps anthology. That was actually my first publication. And then I have another short story coming out in our Lesbians in Space anthology, which is a Star Trek fan fiction, basically, which I'm really excited about. And then I do have plans for continuing this. Basically, it's a series, but not a series of books. So there will be 3 books in the series, but they're all going to be standalones. So characters will drop in and out from each book, but if you read the second book and you haven't read the first one, you might not get all the Easter eggs, but you won't miss anything. So that's been a big thing recently with a lot of romance and contemporary women's fiction authors, which I really enjoy, because if you do read all the books in the series, you get all these cool Easter eggs of, oh, that character was in book 2, and that's really cool, and or this fun character that you thought was just a one-off character in book 1 is now the main character in book 3. So, that's what I'm trying to do with this one. And each one will have a different theme. For the queer, or in the case of the second book, neurodivergent focus.
Mm-hmm.
And I can actually show you a copy of the book. So this is the cover for the first book. You can see the Bi Pride flag stylized on the cover by my amazing cover designer. So each book is going to have a pride flag as the main backdrop of the book.
Okay.
And but they are all going to be connected by featuring dreams. So that's going to be the main connecting feature of all of them.
That is so awesome. So awesome. Now, let's take a moment and switch gears to your other endeavor, your travel agency. Let's talk about that for a little bit.
Absolutely.
So, what kind of nerdy travel packages do you offer? Because you never know, we might want to take you up on it.
Absolutely. I'd be happy to. So I can pretty much plan whatever, wherever. I don't offer like specific packages, because I do all custom tours for people. So, if you want a pre-made package that's, a specific tour company's Outlander tour to Scotland or Ireland or something like that, I can certainly, book you on that tour, bus tour, that sort of thing. But mostly what I do is custom tours. So, I do have like a family group. It's 3 couples. Their family is from Ireland, and they are going to Ireland in September, and they are going to be tracing their ancestry while they're there. So they are doing an ancestry nerdventure. So they are doing a private driver vacation. They picked out all of the cities that they wanted to go to. I worked extensively with the company that I booked it through with them to pick out the individual things that they wanted to do, because each of the siblings had like specific things that they wanted to see and do while they were there, in addition to doing the ancestry tracing. Like one of the siblings is very into literature, so there's several authors' houses that they want to go to, and then a couple of them are very interested in nature, and so they're doing the Cliffs of Moher, and they're doing a cruise to see birds and different things. Then I've got another couple that's going in August, and they're doing kind of a royalty nerd venture to England and Scotland, and they're going to do Westminster Abbey, and they're going to Buckingham Palace, and they're doing the Buckingham Palace tour. They specifically picked dates when Buckingham Palace is open so that they can do the tour. And then they're going to Althorp, which is related to Princess Diana's home, and then they're going up to Scotland, and they're doing a bunch of royalty things in Scotland, and then they're going to Ireland, and they're doing a bunch of stuff there, and really cool stuff with that. I've got some other people who want to do another literature nerd venture in England, and it's not just England and the British Isles. I have had people go to New Zealand and do the whole Lord of the Rings nerd venture. I've done that one myself, and have done Hobbiton, but also Mount Sunday and Edoras and all the different filming locations, going around Wellington to see the different places. There's just so many places in New Zealand to see for Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit. And I've also had clients who love national parks, and they did 8 national parks in 12 days. And I planned a driving trip for them, and they just went up in the western part of the US and did a bunch of national parks. And basically I could turn anything into a nerd venture depending on what you're nerdy about. So yeah.
Well, I've been telling the halfling that we need to travel to New Zealand to visit her ancestral homeland.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, she's got to be with the other halflings.
Yes.
All right. So what actually motivated you? How did you get the spark for this idea? I mean, it's awesome. I'm surprised somebody else hasn't done it already. So what was the catalyst for this?
Yeah. So, first I decided that I needed to get out of corporate life. That was just not working for me anymore. I had been in a corporate job for about 15 years, and I just needed to get out. And we were in a position financially for me to be able to do that. And so I had thought about it, and I was just thinking, like, what do I want to do? What else can I do? And, I was doing some copy editing for William. I don't call him William ever. But yeah, copy editing for him, but the publishing company wasn't a thing yet at that time. He was still self-publishing. But I was just thinking about it, and I just loved planning our trips. But I thought, some people don't have time to do that for themselves, and they don't necessarily want to do that for themselves. So, there are still travel agents out there because people don't have the time, or they don't want to do it for themselves. So I thought, I can do that. I love doing that. I love sitting on hotel websites and scouring, looking at rooms and pictures and all that kind of thing, and making spreadsheets of costs and that kind of thing. So I quit my job, and I took some courses and became a certified travel associate through the Travel Institute, and then opened my business in 2018. And didn't initially launch Nerdventures, but I was thinking about it, and everybody says that you should have a niche of some kind. And you can book things outside of your niche. I book things outside of my niche as well. I will pretty much book almost anything. But some people specialize in cruises, or they specialize in, just Europe, or they specialize in Disney or something like that. But I wanted something a little different. And I thought, we love going to places and seeing where they filmed stuff. And so I thought, what about like nerdy adventures? Because I'd already named my business Melvin's Travel Adventures. And then hey, Nerdventures, that's a cool name. So that was how Melvin's Nerdventures kind of came about as well. So it's sort of a subset of Melvin's travel adventures. But yeah, and
All right. Well, circling back to your writing,
yeah.
what has been the biggest surprise for you so far in your writing journey?
I think just that I'll go back and read something that I've written and think, wow, that's so much better than I thought it was. Or I wrote that? Really? um, but also, like, I've already gotten a couple of reviews on Goodreads from ARC readers that are like 4 and 5 stars, and these are not my friends. I don't know these people. Like, oh, this is amazing. And I also received a cover quote from a USA Today bestselling author
Ooh.
today. So we're the first version of the cover does not have that on there yet, but the second run of the books should have those on there for release. But it's just been more amazing than I could have expected. The feedback that I've been getting, so I'm really excited about it, and I hope more people are pleasantly surprised by this book.
So now that you've been an editor and a writer and a travel agent, which is easier?
Ooh, probably an editor. Maybe. I don't
Maybe.
know. I don't know. It's really a toss up. Because it depends on what I'm editing or what I'm writing. And it depends on what travel I'm planning,
Right.
as to what might be easier. Um, but I mean, I love them all. I love doing all of them. And it's not necessarily always about easy. It's more about, do you love it? And I love them. So
I understand. Believe me, personally, I understand.
yeah.
Now, you have a lot of irons in your fire. Now, do you use those spreadsheets that you and William are so fond of to keep track of them, or how do you manage your time?
It's difficult. There are spreadsheets. There's also, I live by my calendar. I have both a paper calendar on the wall, and then I also use my phone calendar that's shared with William, so then we can see all the all the major events, especially with Space Wizard, because we do a lot of markets, a lot of local markets, and conventions and things throughout the year. So we have to make sure that we don't double book ourselves, because that has occasionally happened. And also have maintain a social life so that we can have game nights like we're having this weekend, or have he can play D&D, or we can have a weekend alone, not doing anything planned, where we can sit and play Stardew Valley or watch a movie or something. But I have kind of a schedule throughout the day of what I'm doing, depending on the day. With three pretty free form jobs, my schedule kind of can vary from day to day, week to week, minute to minute. Sometimes, being a travel agent means you're sort of on call 24/7, especially if clients are traveling. But it also depends on, if the travel agency isn't particularly busy at a given moment, or I've gotten caught up on everything, then I may be spending more time on editing. If I'm caught up on editing, then I might turn my attention to writing. But I try to block out time for each thing throughout the day and throughout the week. such that I have a schedule, more or less.
Well, one of the things we ask people, all the creators who come on our show, regardless of their discipline, is what is the best piece of advice you've ever gotten from anybody about your craft?
Write the book. That is one of the pieces of advice that I've been given, that we give to aspiring authors. I forget where it originally came from. It might have been from one of the Writing Excuses cruises. It may have been before that. But if you are wanting to be a writer, write the thing, whether it's a book, a short story, a novelette, whatever it is, just write it.
Mm-hmm.
Then put it away or give it to somebody else to read and write something else. But you have to just write the thing. You can't just say, well, I'm working on a book for 20 years and not actually finish it. You are an author as long as you are writing something. So, props to you for starting anything, but, just finish it. Even if it stinks. The first thing I wrote was horrible. It was awful, like really bad, but you keep doing it. And the more you do it, the more practice you get, just as with anything else, you get better. And getting feedback from other people, especially people who are not your friends and family, will help make you a better writer. Because friends and family will come to you and they'll say, "Oh, I liked it." Because they don't want to hurt your feelings. But if you give it to people who are not your friends and family, they'll be more likely to give you, not that they're going to be mean, but they'll be more likely to give you constructive criticism to actually make you a better writer.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So.
Well, it's always good to have that kind of support around you to give you that feedback as necessary. Now, this is kind of a little bit more of a difficult question. You've got your first book published. Your business is established. Space Wizard Science Fantasy is doing very well. If you could go back with one piece of knowledge you have now to tell yourself when you were first starting out, what would it be? About anything.
Yeah,
About anything.
I'm trying to think of which thing would I want the advice about. Yeah, I mean, because my first thought was like, if I could go back in time and not have breast cancer, but I mean, like, that's everybody. That's what I wrote a book about. What would happen if? But so many things in my life, great things have happened because I had it. One thing that I wish around that is that I had joined a support group earlier, to have more knowledge surrounding the journey of breast cancer and going through it to ask questions of people, not just doctors, because doctors are great. I've had some fantastic doctors. They've all been wonderful, but sometimes you feel like you're treated as a number and you're kind of pushed through the office in a 15-minute appointment and you don't get to ask all your questions. And, sometimes in a support group, you have more freedom to ask more questions, and, you've got other people who have actually been through it that can give you more honest advice, or just honest answers of, how bad are the hot flashes, or, how bad is the chemo, or what kind of foods did you have when you were going through chemo? Because they give you this giant notebook when you're going through some of that stuff. And oh my God, the last thing you want to do is read a giant notebook when you're doing cancer treatment. But yeah, I think that might be the thing, even not surrounding any of my businesses or endeavors, would be to have joined the support group a little earlier.
Okay. Now, this is something we try to give as many authors as we can the opportunity to do. Can you give our listeners and viewers the elevator pitch for your book? What you would tell people at a convention if they came up to your table?
Sure. It is a what would happen if parallel universe romance with a bisexual main character who has dreams of her romantic partner.
Ooh, okay. I could see that drawing folks in.
Yep.
Heather, where can people find both your book and more information about your travel agency?
Sure. So for my book, the easiest place to find out more information is to go to spacewizardsciencefantasy.com. And you can go to the books section and find Only a Chapter, which is the title of the book. And then that will give links to all the places you can purchase it. So you can pick your favorite vendor to purchase your book, whether ebook or print. And you can even order signed copies directly from our website. And we will ship them straight out to you after I get a chance to sign it. And then also, like if you're local to our area and you want to catch us at a market, we're happy to see you in person, and I can sign it and personalize it for you in person. And then for Melvin's Travel Adventures, you can go to melvinstraveladventures.com. And that's my website, and you can find out more information on there, including my process and inspirational photos for trips. A lot of pictures from my Nerdventures, and there's a form to sign up for my newsletter, or you can send me an email or anything like that right there from the website.
Oh, cool. We'll make sure we get all that in the show notes.
Absolutely.
Now, we're coming time to wrap up, but we want to know what is next for Heather Tracy.
Well, next I will be doing a bunch of markets and cons this year with Space Wizard. We will have a full schedule in June for Pride Month. My next release for writing will be in as I said, the Lesbians in Space anthology, which will be coming out in June this year. So watch out for that Star Trek fan fiction in there, because the tagline for Lesbians in Space is "Where no man has gone before." So there had to be some Star Trek fan fiction in there.
The Spaceman approves.
Yes. And then I will be starting outlining the next book as soon as I have time. And that should be hopefully coming out in the not this year's campaign for Space Wizard, but the following year. So hopefully in 2026, late 2026 or early 2027, book 2 will be coming out for my series. And then just doing as many Nerdventures as I have time to do. We will be going to New York City this Thanksgiving for the Macy's Parade, which is something that my mom and I have always talked about doing. So we are doing a NYC Nerdventure. And I've never been to New York City before, so there will be lots of filming locations we will be stopping by and taking photos at. So, yeah.
Cool. Well, We look forward to seeing you and William at some of the shows this summer. We've got a busy schedule ourselves, so I'm sure our paths will cross again.
Oh, I'm sure.
So I want to thank you so very much for joining, me today. Normally I would say us, but as the halfling is not here, the halfling's chair is empty. I miss the halfling. Halfling, come back.
Yes.
But
Tell her I said I hope she feels better.
I will do. And we've had such a great the Spaceman has had such a great time talking to you, and I'm glad you were able to come on to the show.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me.
Well, you're always welcome. And we also want to thank our listeners for tuning in today, and we hope that you've enjoyed this episode and become inspired by today's guest, Heather Tracy. We want to give everyone out there a huge thank you and a massive shout out. And this is the Spaceman, or the Halfling and the Spaceman, over and out.